Welcome to Marketing for Book Coaches, the podcast where we explore marketing techniques that will set your book coaching business apart. I'm Anne, your host and a business coach, helping bold book coaches build thriving businesses. Are you one of those book coaches who is guesting or hosting a podcast and you have the impression that you are leaving money on the table? Keep listening to this podcast because in today's episode, we're diving into the nuts and bolts of setting up a podcast. From choosing the equipment to getting your first episode live, and really the most important thing, gaining momentum and monetize your podcast. This is part of a two-part series on podcasting just for book coaches. Today, we're focusing more on the technical setup. And in the second episode, we'll explore how to choose a unique podcast topic for book coaches. To dive deeper into the topic of this first episode, we are joined by the host of Time to Simplify Podcasting. She's built a signature framework that helps entrepreneurs create content their market can't stop listening to, and most importantly, again, can't wait to buy from. Let's get ready for a thrilling conversation with Jen Rogers. Hi, Jen.
Hey there, thrilling. Let's do it. Let's thrill.
Well, thrilling. We've already had lots of things coming in before getting into the episode, so I am pretty sure it's going to be thrilling.
Go. Let's do it. Let's dig.
First question, what made you go for podcasting?
Oh my gosh. You know when something happens to you and you struggle with it? You really struggle to work through the challenge that you're in. And a lot of times you don't even think there's a way out. And yet, eventually, as you continue to move forward and as you continue to iterate, you find that you've stumbled on a solution. And then you get the brainy idea that your solution might help someone else. And when you get that solution, you understand you do want to help someone else. So if you are entrepreneurial minded, you take what you've learned and you really truly have a servant's heart and you want to save other people the pain and the time delay and the hurt and the confusion and in our case, tech overwhelm from doing that thing that they know, oh, I need to go do this thing. So for me, I was a stepmama in the trenches and I was very angry. And I did not realize how angry I was until I started podcasting. So podcasting, heads up, dangerous. It might reveal your anger level. Like that stuff, that butt ugly stuff hidden in your heart, it may come to fruition. In fact, if you're doing your job right, it will. Podcasting will reveal those areas where I believe God is honing you to move forward, to address and not ignore, because we're very good. I don't know about you, but I'm a great undercover agent. I am so good. I hide things from myself. And the thing is, you can't hide them. God, yes. Yeah, see, I'm not alone here. I am not alone here.
Yeah.
So whatever it is that you have recovered from, and you may not be 100% recovered, but you're recovered enough that you can invite people in to share. That's how I got into podcasting. I remember I was sitting down one day and I'm an accidental entrepreneur. That's a story for another podcast. When I sat down, I said, we need to start a podcast. And I hit the record button and I started talking. I remember looking over the Missouri River bluff. It was fall. It was dark. You know, after a snow and then it's dirty and brown and depressing. Dirty, drown. I mean, brown doesn't start with D, but it should. It should for alliteration because I love alliteration. So when I sat down and I recorded that episode, I realized, this is hard. And what I didn't realize until much, much later is I did not go in with the mindset that this was part of my business plan, which means, guess what? I didn't make any money. In fact, of course, you know that even though you don't have to buy a bunch of equipment for a podcast, or if you don't know, just a heads up, stop stressing over your microphone. Okay. You don't need to worry about which caliber of microphone you buy. You actually need to worry about this one thing, not worry, plan. You need to plan for what is my business purpose of bringing this podcast to life. And I didn't do that. So, through trial and error and a whole lot of money and time, and mostly time, because money, you can always make more money, but time, you can never get time back. So, through an extended period of time and several pivots, I am now in my savored sweet spot, and I help others leverage podcasting on either side of the microphone so that when you go into a podcast as a host or a guest, you answer two questions. One, what is my business purpose for coming on this show? Heads up, full disclosure here. I do have a business purpose. It's not that I just love Anne and have fully bled out. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much Anne is gonna share, but I don't even know what I whacked myself on, but I am bleeding out and putting pressure on. No tourniquet required yet, but I mean, it's a bloody tissue right now. So it's risky business, is podcasting, but I'm here for a business purpose. If you're interested in launching or relaunching your podcast, or you are a guest expert and you want to know how to share your expertise in a way that will have people responding to you when you appear on a show, I'm your gal. So I'm hoping that in the conversation that we're having today, you have a desire to learn more about who I am to determine if we're a good fit to work together. So that's my business purpose. It's very important to be clear on that, not shy about that. The other question you need to answer is, how will I serve the audience? So that's really a two-pronged thing. So Anne and I have spent time together in talking about what are we bringing to you today so that we can serve you well. So that's really the entrepreneur's heart, is that we want to show up and we want to serve. And that's what we're doing here. We're giving you an idea of some of the things to take into consideration as a podcast host or as a podcast guest. So you can complement your other work, like being a book coach, for example, and helping people understand how to apply podcasting to sell more books. So when you show up on a show with your area of expertise, again, you want to ask, what is my business purpose? And how am I going to show up and serve? Those are the two questions you must have answers to before you ever nuzzle up to the microphone.
And that's the end of the podcast because we just got everything we needed.
There you go.
No, but thank you so much, because I think it is podcasting. So many people are talking about it and making it seem like something very simple, something that you just do for fun. But like you say, when it's in your business plan, you have to have a purpose for it. Without forgetting, of course, that the first thing why you're doing this is to help. In our case, the writers and the listeners of your podcast. But one question I do have is, like, there are lots of podcasts today. Is it still worth to launch on podcasts?
This is my absolute favorite question. Okay, so heads up, as of the latest podcasting report, before Anne and I gathered here together today, 362 podcast hosts say bye-bye to their show every day. Every day.
Every day.
362 hosts say bye-bye to podcasting. You know why I think they're saying goodbye? A couple of reasons. One, that they're just done. They've been doing it for a while and they have served their business purpose. Heads up, this is like a steak not fully cooked. It's very rare that people leave because podcasting is so powerful. The reason why 362 podcasters say no more to podcasting is because they don't have a plan. They have not aligned their show with their overall business plan, and they see it as something unique. Like, I don't know. I wanted to come up with something incredibly clever here, but it's escaping me. I don't know, a pterodactyl with 6 babies. It's incredibly rare that people who have planned for their show and have a business purpose quit, because podcasting is not saturated. That's a common misconception that the podcasting market is saturated. That is not true. And here's the thing. You don't need to be Joe Rogan. You don't need to be Huberman Lab. You don't. If you can build up your show to start with 100 loyal listeners, 100. Think about the connection you can create with those listeners. You can invite them into a community with you. You can invite them on calls so that you can get more feedback from what they need. And then you build on that 100 to work your way to 1,000. That's my recommendation, that you have 1,000 loyal listeners, and you can monetize that and earn quite a good income with 1,000 loyal listeners. These are listeners that come back. Listen, you can monetize at 100. It depends on what your offers are, what your products are, and if you're not telling people what you sell, guess what? They can't buy it because they don't know it exists. So you must share what your CTA is. So podcasting is not saturated. Many hosts are leaving the market, and there are too few good podcasts out there that actually understand. Now, I'm talking indie podcasting here. So, indie podcasting, you say, hey, what is indie podcasting? You're not part of this big podcasting network. You're not this famous person that has a huge following already. This is you deciding, hey, I want to add this piece. I want to put thought leadership out there through a microphone by utilizing podcasting on either side of the mic, whether a host or a guest. And I'm going to share all I can to show up and serve well and issue a CTA to say, if you need this thing, this is where you can find it. And the great thing about using your microphone is the more you talk, the more clear you get about who you are, what your brand is about, and what you sell.
I love that what you just said then. So how do you start up setting up that business plan for the podcast?
How do you start setting up the business plan for the podcast? Well, how do you see podcasting fitting in to your plan? In the sense, let's see, what could you ask yourself? You could ask yourself, how much time do I have to commit to podcasting each week? What am I going to do with each episode? Am I going to produce it on my own? Many indie podcasters do. Or am I going to hire out for someone to produce, knowing that if you have video and audio combined and you have 4 episodes, about 20 minutes, it'll be about $1,000 US to have someone produce your show for you. The great part about that is that everything's all done. It's uploaded into the platform. So let me back up and well, let's save a note and you let me know if you want me to talk about podcasting platform. I'll come back to that in one hot
Yes,
second.
absolutely. I have a question
Okay.
on that.
Okay, cool. So the question to ask is, how does it fit up? How does it align with your business plan? How much time do you have to create a podcast? And what are you going to do with the content that you create? See, the thing that most entrepreneurs think is that, oh my gosh, it takes so much time. And they do an add on, like adding salt and pepper to your baked potato. Yet, what if it's actually your baked potato and that you can take small bites of it and cut it up and splice it up? And that actually replaces other content that you are creating. And the great thing about that is if you have a content plan, which I highly recommend, then you can use that to lead people to your offers. And you've already created it on a podcast. So, right here, we're recording this on video, and you're going to do some video clips, I know, and you're also going to use some audio. So, it's creating content. And the great thing is when you have a guest, it's two pronged. It's really great because it's easier to create that content because there's synergy between the two of us. So we're feeding off each other and we're not
Blood synergy.
yeah, lots of synergy. And it's so good. The flip side is that there's more editing on the back end. So there is a little bit more time. That's been my personal experience and my clients' experience, that it takes a little bit longer to edit because you want to cue it up just right. So how does it align with your business plan? Means how are you going to use the content to replace certain ways that you're generating content right now? And there are a lot of ways that you can do that. You must also decide, am I going video and audio? Am I going audio only? Am I a video podcast? A blog. When the videos came out, it was called a vlog. What is a podcast that's on video? A vodcast? Is that what it is? If you want a podcast, there we go. Well, I'm going to make my mom made up words all the time. I'm going to make it up. So if you want a vodcast or podcast or both, there you go. You have to decide that as well.
Oh. Blogcaster. I love that word. I've never heard of it. Blogcaster. I can live with that.
I like
Okay, so we have our business plan, our content plan. We want to go for it. We have our business mindset
Uh-huh.
light on. Where do we start from a technical perspective? You said it in the introduction. You do not need to um, stress about having the perfect equipment, but you do need something to record and talk about.
Yes, you must buy an ancillary microphone, okay? You must. So it doesn't mean so I have a setup here. Let me tell you, this is not the microphone I started out with, but I love this microphone. I do love it now. It's not the one I started out with. And if you're waiting for a buttload of money to come your way so you can buy the fanciest equipment, you're going to be waiting far too long to start your podcast. So if you know that it's time, then find a microphone that will work and you can get one for under $200. You probably can find one for under 100 and you will upgrade later and that's okay. Using your iPhone ear stuff and using your computer microphone will not create great sound. It's really important to remember that podcasting, when someone is listening to a podcast, they are multitasking. They're doing the laundry, they're going for a drive, they're changing the baby's diaper, they're working on their business plan for podcasting as they listen to someone else tell them how to launch a podcast. Yeah, that's what they're doing. So you need to remember that. So if your sound is not great, you will lose them. You absolutely will lose them. So this is why it's important. As far as the technical stuff, listen, there are a lot of things that you can do, but there's so much that you don't have to do. So if you want to hire out, that just alleviates a big stress point. So the 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs I work with, they're going to hire out the production. They don't have time for that. But you can't hire out your voice. You can't hire out how you show up, your energy level, the way you think, how you share information. So you've got to show up at least for that. So you could podcast in an hour a week, which is phenomenal, phenomenal to generate thought leadership in an hour a week. As far as how do I get it here on my phone? Let's see, this would have been a great prompt to have my own podcast up here, but I wasn't ready. I mean, next time, next time. But on your phone, let me share it like this. So when you go home and you park, so if you live in an apartment complex, maybe you have a parking space that has your apartment number on it. Or if you have garages, maybe you have 2 garages and you know that your husband parks in garage number 2 because you get garage number 1, the bigger garage. So you pull your car up and you park in your designated spot. The thing is, you could park in a different spot. That's how easy it is to take your podcast and upload it onto a platform. It's just a different garage. So there are a few platforms I recommend. I'm not going to name any names here. There are definitely some to stay away from, and it's always shifting. So just know, go for the big name platforms. And if you want to message me privately, you can message me privately, and I'll make a recommendation for you. But people get hung up there, and they get hung up on how do I get it on my phone? It's so easy to do.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's a whole where do I park my car kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with the platforms. They made it so easy for you right now. Like I'm on YouTube and Spotify. It takes me literally 10 minutes just to upload every day. Even on Spotify now, you can upload the video as well. So I don't even have to like extract the audio anymore. They're absolutely brilliant from that point of view.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Do you advise to be like on a lot of platforms, or you like just choose your 2, 3 platforms to put your podcast on?
It's a great question, and I hesitate to answer it. So let's see. How do I want to share my answer with you, Anne? Listen, I'll do it like this.
When this is not a very diplomatic podcast, so people have said worst thing on this podcast.
Huh?
And we've had the conversation on blood, so
Yeah. Listen, you've got to do you. So if you're at home and you're watching a bunch of littles, you have very little time. If you are working all day and this is your side gig right now as you're building up your business, you don't have a lot of time. So you need to decide how it is that you're going to move forward and what makes the most sense for you. So when you're thinking about podcasting as a whole and you're thinking about where do I want to show up, I am I know I'm not antisocial. but I am anti-social media. Now, you may not know that by looking at my LinkedIn profile.
Welcome, welcome to the club.
Yes. You may not know that by looking at my LinkedIn profile or on Facebook. Here's what I decided. I had a coach at one point in time, and unfortunately, it was my worst coaching experience ever. And fortunately, it was my worst coaching experience ever. I believe that God used that time to remind me how to show up for my clients, to remember what it's like when you don't feel heard, when you don't feel seen. She made a recommendation to go on Instagram and Facebook and I don't know where else 3 times a day. So I
Oh,
did
three
it.
times a day, Jen.
3 times. I know. Thank you for the gas. I mean, this is probably why I'm bleeding because shocking, shocking. Um,
No,
but
no,
three
because
times
I
a day.
know, but I know it's the advice that's out there, that indeed you have to be all the time on the social media, and it's something that I really try to bring into this podcast. That even when we are talking about social media, it is in a sustainable and organic way because you cannot sustain this.
Yeah. Yeah. So I made it Monday through Friday. No, I made it one full week, Monday through Sunday. And what I learned at the end of that week was emotionally, I was a wreck. I mean, I was really,
Mhm.
it was very stressful to me and I was not enjoying it. And it took up so much of my mental energy because I was so stressed out about having to do this thing. And I thought, okay, well, the next week I'm not going to do it on Sunday. And I worship on Sunday. So I didn't like the idea of having to show up on social on that day either. So when I got to Friday, I said, well, I'm not doing it Saturday either. I'm just going to do it Monday through Friday. And then by the third week, I think by Wednesday, I said, this is ridiculous. This is not serving me. So I had to assess on my own to say, this is not working for me. So I walked away from social media for a while and definitely walked away from a specific platform. And when I came back, I realized you do need some form of presence on social. So my approach, so again, this is Jen Rogers, this is my approach. I decided I'm going to go on LinkedIn and I'm going to learn what I can and I'm going to establish whatever presence I can there, whatever that meant. I didn't really know what that meant. And when I did, I also said, I'm going to take whatever I post and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to put it on my Facebook page. I am not creating 2 sets of content. I'm not doing that. And there are different users on Facebook and different users on LinkedIn. And the funny, funny thing is that while my LinkedIn presence is growing and I continue to meet incredible people, and I've gotten a client, let's see, I started probably 4 months ago. I've gotten a client that I know of from LinkedIn, and I don't know the other ones if they've actually come from LinkedIn or Facebook or just boot camps that I'm running, but I know for sure I got one on LinkedIn. And I also know that my Facebook stuff took off, even though I was gearing it for LinkedIn. I think because it looks different on the platform,
Mm-mm.
there's a certain level of professionalism. I don't know. But I decided I can do that. So I'm on 2 plus my podcast. That puts me on 3. And that is more than enough for me. It's doable because I know I need a presence. Because here's the thing, whatever it is that you're selling, the really, the really, the buyers who are ready to buy, they're probably not spending a lot of time on social depending on where you are. So if you are after clients that I am wanting to come into my circle, they have a proven offer and they have money to invest. So they're not going and doing the scroll of death and commenting and liking and leaving hearts and all of that. Instead, when they decide I'm going to start a podcast, they're gonna go and they're gonna do some searching. So I'm gonna pop up for that, and then they're gonna go look at my feed, and they're gonna scroll through my feed. They probably still won't comment. They probably still won't leave any emojis or likes or any of that, but they'll know that I'm consistently showing up. So Monday through Friday, I post. Unless there's a rare exception, like yesterday, for example, I had an event that I traveled from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And there's actually some emotional stress associated with that. Oh, I need to post. And I thought, no, I need to focus on. I was sponsoring an event. This is where my focus is today. And nobody's going to die if I don't show up on LinkedIn. Nobody's going to die. And I need to be okay with that. So, in line with my schedule and in line with what I've decided, Monday through Friday, I'm posting with some rare exceptions, I'm good to go. So, I can't answer for you. I can't tell you what the right answer is. What I can encourage you to do is to say, how much time am I willing to spend? And then set a timer. Get yourself one of these, not your phone. Get yourself one of
Oh
these.
yeah, I have a really nice one then.
Yeah, not.
I
Oh,
have
oh, you're showing me up. Oh,
I'm equipped.
you
So
are.
for those who are listening to us, we are comparing our big clocks. So I'll do the competition here.
My clock is not big. You're
I
not
have a very big one.
comparing clocks, and mine clearly is teeny, teeny, tiny. I mean, it's going down, hiding out in shame right now.
But this is a one for kids. So they use it for kids normally.
Oh, I see. I see.
So they see the big numbers and the big things. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted. I
I
interrupted you
said
with
I
the
was
whole.
saying set a clock. Just set a timer for how long you're gonna be on, so you get on and you get off. And then you know. So whenever we set a boundary, that's very empowering to us, actually. So
Yeah.
boss your
Yeah.
social media around, not the other way. Don't let it boss you around. Don't get sucked in. It's designed to suck you in. You have to know that going in. It's designed to suck you in. Set a timer.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And this is something, by the way, that we discussed in another episode, building your business without social media. So I will put the link in the description if you want to listen to that one too. And there is a business clinic just for book coaches on that specific topic, February 20th. So you can have a look at that one too. Oh, you see, you see how I put in my business purpose?
I was just going to say, so since we're talking about podcasting, I was going to compliment you on that very thing. That there's this natural, hey, if you're interested in learning more, you're going to want to check this out. And what that does is it actually adds your credibility.
Mm.
Oh, well, she's already covered this topic that I'm interested in. And that feels good to me that you are anticipating what I need to know. So thanks so much. Bravo. 1,000
Oh,
bonus points for
thank
you.
you. Because it's very stressful for me actually to do this podcast with you because I know that you really know how to set up a podcast, get it monetized. So I always feel like, oh, am I doing the right thing? So thank you for that.
You're
For
doing
the
great.
confidence.
You're doing I didn't even know you were nervous. You're doing great. This is so good.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So
That's
we
good.
have the business plan. We have our
Yeah.
first episodes. They're uploaded. Next step, we want to gain momentum and monetize the podcast. What is your recommendation here?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I was just having an interview with a man named Jeff who does email sequences. So what we shared is that when you're podcasting, you think, oh, I'm just going to nuzzle up to the microphone and I'm going to upload it and I'll do whatever social media or not, and it's going to be great. But what do people do once they find you? So you must have some email marketing to go along with it. So you have a lead magnet that you're selling, for example, or for me, I have several boot camps lined up for 2025. So I'm going to invite people to join my boot camp. When I send them to the page, is the page ready? Do I have an email sequence for them? Am I following up? Am I welcoming them into the community? It's really important that you think beyond the microphone. As much as we love the microphone, you must think beyond the microphone. Okay, what happens? What do people experience once they come into my circle? How do they get to know me? And how do I get to know them? So think about when you're going and you're investing in something, what do you want to experience? And that's what you need to set up. Email marketing, we hear a lot about it. People are talking about it all the time. It's really just it's how do you build the relationship? You know, we talk about nurture sequences, for example. How do you build the relationship?
Mm.
So for me, if you come into my circle, I might say, hey, I'll welcome you. And then I'll say, I'll be back in your email in a couple of days. And then in a couple of days, I'll share, these are the top 2 performing podcast episodes. I suspect the reason they're the top 2 performing episodes is because blah, blah, blah. I'm just riffing here, making an example. I think you might be interested in listening to one of these. Let me know what you think. If there's another topic you're interested in, reply back to this email and let me know. And that's it. See, we want to give the whole kitchen sink. We want to pack the way that I pack for a trip, which is not recommended. It's not recommended. Instead, Do one thing. Give them one thing. I think you might be interested in listening to this. I'll be back in your email in a couple of days. Let them know what to expect when they receive an email from you. How many episodes do I have in the hopper? I recommend you have 3 plus your trailer. And here's why. I used to think, who listens to all these episodes of podcasts? I mean, don't you just listen to one and then go do your thing? That's not what I find. And the funny thing is I tested this on myself. I put myself in the laboratory and I learned if I like a show, I listen to more than one episode. I
That is
want to hear
true.
the next thing. Yeah. Yeah. I'm like,
I've heard that
oh,
from my podcast as well. Like people, they were like, "Oh, but you just have one episode." Yes, because the others are coming out.
uh-huh. Yeah. So when you first launch, you'll want 3 in the hopper. So you have your trailer, and your trailer is a very brief intro of the purpose of the podcast. Who are you serving? So people know, is this podcast for me? So it's not your long extended bio. And here is a hot tip.
Let's repeat that. It's not your long extended bio. We
It's
do not want to
not
hear all the things you've done since high school.
right. Right. That's exactly right. I mean, I want to shout that from the rooftops. You're exactly right. Instead, it's what is it that has brought you here? So you might ask a few questions. Are you wondering how to launch a podcast successfully? Are you spending way too much time trying to figure out which microphone to buy and stressing over all of the tech that a podcast has? I propose instead you think about your overall business plan and how a podcast can up-level your credibility and your thought leadership. So I just made that up on the fly, but that's what I would recommend. You would get something like that. So I make it about you right away in the trailer. Hey there, I'm Jen Rogers, and I am blah 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 blah. And be sure that you join me weekly when I drop episodes. I mean, you can say how often you drop them, and subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode. So that can be your trailer. 2 minutes. It's not long. It's just enough so someone can understand if they want to opt in. And then episodes 1, 2, and 3, you have those ready so that they can get a sampling of what you offer. So one of the things I recommend is, I often say now, "I will catch you in the next episode." So I've been saying that a lot, and I have clients who they've got their content planned out, and they're getting 12 to 15 episodes in the hopper before they ever release anything. So they're saying, "In episode number 2, we're going to talk about fill in the blank." And what that does for a listener is it says, "Wow, they're ready for me. They have already thought about what I need next, and they've told me what I can expect to hear in the next episode." That's pretty cool. So if you can pull that off, kudos to you. When you're first launching as a podcast host, 3 episodes in the hopper and 1 trailer.
So I have so many questions to ask you, Jen, but we are coming to the end of our time. And I feel like before you completely bleed out on this podcast, you do need to go take care of that finger. One last question, or rather, is there one last tip that you can give to my coaches?
Don't do it alone. Don't do it alone. Being an entrepreneur is so lonely in and of itself, and there are people who have gone before you. So go to those people and invest in your dream. Invest in what's in your heart to do. You have a calling, you have a unique gifting, whatever it is. If you're not interested in podcasting at all and you simply like listening to Anne's show, fantastic. My question to you would be this: what is it that you are passionate about doing? What's preventing you from hiring someone to help you get there faster? Again, it goes back to you can never get time back. You can make more money, but you can never get your time back. Go hire a coach who has done what you've done, what you want to do, so it doesn't take you nearly as long. And I'm going to put another tip in here. Go in with the idea that you are going to monetize every single episode. Every episode builds on the next one. Make sure you have a call to action in every episode as a host. or as a guest.
I love that. Thank you so much, Jen. So
Yeah.
before we completely wrap up, where can we find you?
Okay, listen, I'm going to give another tip. Never, 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 never send anyone to the graveyard. The graveyard is your website. When you send someone to your website, they don't know what to do because you haven't told them what to do. So think about talking to a 15-year-old teeny bopper boy. Okay? You look at them eyeball to eyeball and you tell them what you want them to do, and then they look at you still, huh? You've got to make it so stinking obvious what you want them to do. So if you want people to hop on a consult with you, you would say your website name and then / book a call, let's say, or book a consult, whatever it is that you say. If you want them to buy your book, then you'll say download the first chapter of my book at. So you give them a very specific thing to do. And take this into consideration. I have no idea when Anne is going to air this. I don't. And even if Anne says, hey, I'm going to air it tomorrow, something may happen where she changes her mind and the lineup changes. So, whatever your CTA is as a guest, ensure that it's timely no matter what time it is, because it could be 6 months later before that episode is released. And this is why people send people to their main page, to their website, because they say, well, I don't know when it's going to be aired. So you need to have some action for your listener to take. All right, I keyed that up. Here's the action. And I'm ready for you. I am ready for you. Head on over to coachjenrogers.com / podcast bootcamp. I am hosting 9 boot camps in 2025. Now, if you catch us way later than 2025, let's say it's 2027, I still want you to go to coachjenrogers.com / podcast bootcamp, because if that page is not active, I'm going to direct you to something else. But I've given you a very specific thing to do. At the time of this recording, I'm kicking off a boot camp at the end of February. I also have one scheduled in April. I have another one scheduled at the end of May, and then I'd have to look in my book to see when the other ones are. But they are upcoming. So I'm ready. So my strategy as a guest is to give a call to action that I know is fluid, that there is something that you can do with that call to action. And by the way, I am not married to some famous quarterback. There's no D in my last name. It's Rogers. So when I say coachjenrogers.com, here's another tip. You
I
actually
had
want to
I had seen that one coming.
you actually want to spell out your address so that people get it right. Because it could be that you are driving in the car, listening to the podcast, and it's over the Bose speakers in your swanky car, and somebody is sitting in the back seat listening. And you say, go here. And they've liked what you've said. Maybe the driver doesn't really, but they've liked it. And you're telling them where to go. They might just put that in their phone. So that's why you want to spell it out.
And if you haven't caught Jen, her website address, it will be in the description as well. So you can always pick it up there as well. Thank you so much, Jen. So as a summary of the session, we really discussed on how you can set up a successful podcast. And it's not too late, but there are 2 things you really need to keep in mind at all times. 1, what is the business purpose of your podcast? And 2, how will I serve my audience to the best? Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed our discussion and you want to continue it, I invite you to come have a look at my business clinic, a free monthly Q&A session where we strategize around your biggest business challenges as a book coach. It is happening every Thursday of the month, and you can sign up via the link in the episode description. I'd love to see you there. Don't forget, this is part 1 of the special podcasting series. Do look out for the second episode, where we'll be discussing something just as important: how to choose a podcast episode as a book coach. Because let's face it, having a podcast is great. Having a podcast that brings in money is even better. But having a podcast with a clear unit focus is even more important. So stay tuned. Bye-bye.